The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us on this Tuesday, the stormy Tuesday evening. Well, was it though? I mean, if you're in the Twin Cities area, I mean, I had posted on my Facebook page this massive line of looked like very severe weather coming through the Twin Cities. I don't know if you all got anything. And not that I'm like hoping to get something, nasty or anything, but it's like we got a little bit of thunder, we got some rain, but from what that looked like to what we got was really did not match for me. So I'm hoping everyone was as lucky as I was in that situation. But yeah, that was that. I mean, I was looking at that and I thought, oh, these look really powerful tonight. I don't know. And then here we are. Next thing you know, it's past, and they were also very slow moving. I'm looking now at the radar, and it's just getting into the Eau Claire area, and it was like, geez, these things are taking like the scenic route or something. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but nevertheless, they're through. Especially after thinking it was going to be quite the stormy day. Didn't really turn out to be that way. Now, just real fast for those who tuned in last night, or if you want to tune in as well, we had the episode with President Nixon and Jackie Gleason alien encounter thing. We've got a lot of good feedback on it. If you missed that, you can go over to ghostboxradio.com and re-listen to that. But tonight we're going to be talking about grounding intuition and reality. And I have with me tonight, and I always enjoy having with me, is Reverend Briana Lee. And Briana and I get into some very deep conversations. And what I love about it is that Briana is so knowledgeable on all these subjects, and she helps so many people that it's really, I would even go as far as saying a privilege to be able to have you on and talk about these certain things, and that tonight you're going to kind of put yourself out there a little bit, explain your situation. Mm-hmm. But I have to ask beforehand, are you in the same situation I'm in? It's early June. We're not hitting, we're hitting 80s, but it's going to go back to the 60s tomorrow, or lower 70s. It's a little too abnormal to put on the air conditioning. And I am like roasting in here at the moment, because of course I'm in a room because it is it's supposed to be a radio studio in here. I can't have any windows open, a fan on,
right,
or shut. I might die during this. Okay, there is a distinct possibility I will expire.
Solidarity. I have the same muggy room going on my end, where I have the window open, but yeah, it's like it's not quite hot enough to put in the air conditioner. Don't really want to just yet, but all the fans are going, and I'm like, well, I'm a little sweaty, but I'll make it through. It's better for my my gas bill or my electric bill.
Right. And
a little bit longer. The
things you'll do to get information out to people so that they can protect themselves, and that is kind of smoldering in a room trying to talk about it. We will do our best to survive the rest of this broadcast,
because we do it for you guys. We're doing it for you.
We're doing it for you. So and for a thank you, go out to Mega's Books. That's and right. Buy some stuff. So we got that out of the way. Okay, so Briana, we're talking about grounding intuition and reality. There's a lot of things that we're kind of going to be covering, or you're going to be covering tonight. Mm-hmm. What is it? Because when I asked Briana to come on the show, it's more of like, Briana, what do you want to talk about? Because Briana, there's always something that you're thinking of. I mean, if we followed your outline, this would be about a 7-hour episode. So
I know. He's like, we can't possibly cover all these things. And I'm like, well, we'll see what we can get to. We'll see.
After doing this show for 10 years, I kind of have an idea of how things work a little bit. And it's like, no, but you know what? It's worthwhile. So first of all, Briana, why is this important? What we're going to talk about tonight?
What we're going to talk about tonight is important because, as people are opening up to their psychic abilities, a lot of times it seems like if you didn't believe in the possibility of psychic abilities, once you have some kind of paranormal event or supernatural event, that's when you start going, well, now I need to know more. And there's all kinds of techniques out there for you to learn how to develop your psychic skills or learn how to work with spirits. But then there's also dangers and pitfalls, and there's various and sundry traps that you can fall into. And, the two that I would say that get a lot of airtime that people really fixate on is the dangers of the paranormal and the occult has to do with demons or witchcraft, where it's like, the ceremonies and the ritual abuse or the spirits that could be malicious or malevolent. But the thing that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough is where it starts to hinge on psychosis. It's actually very easy to have your brain mislead you on your road of developing your psychic abilities. And so I want to come on here and talk about, okay, there's mild forms of psychosis that are like mind traps and ego traps that we can fall into, and it can escalate. And there's ways in which we can be mindful of our own mental health as we explore the worlds of the paranormal to make sure that we're not ending up in some kind of episode where we're delusional. And I've had enough interaction with people who've crossed that line now that I feel like this is important enough to come on here and talk about. So.
And so a couple things I want to quickly say before we really get into this. If people are listening tonight and have questions, you are available for consultation, right?
I am available for consultation, and that's part of my outreach here, where I'm like, if you're struggling with any of the topics that I'm talking about tonight, you can find me at Magus Books. You can come for a consultation. There's all different ways in which I can help you navigate the phenomena in your life. You're not alone, and it can be hard to find people that can really hang with the weird and the strange, and I have heard it all. I there's no story too weird for me. I'm not going to automatically pass you off as like you're crazy or this or that. I know people are worried. Like I hear that a lot. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? So I want to talk about what does crazy look like in the context of psychic abilities and psychic gifts,
So kind of the first thing that I thought of when you're talking about that is the fact of like, I think it's easy to fall in those traps very early on, right? When you're before you're getting there. And I think that's kind of where you actually want to start, isn't it?
Right. Well, when we're talking about these traps that you can fall into as you're opening up to the realms of spirit, maybe you're examining your dreams, maybe you get flashes of insight, or you hear things, or you smell things, and you're trying to understand why they're happening or where they're coming from. Your own preconceived notions about how the spirit world works can start to create a narrative that can lead you down a path of completely misjudging a situation. Mm-hmm. And I see this a lot with people who come into Magus that are just learning. They're trying to figure some things out. And they're like, well, A, B, and C happened. And not realizing that because our brains are already wired to find patterns, their expectation of what it means can interfere with the correct interpretation of what's actually going on.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to think of a good example. So here's a good, easy example. Let's say you have a dream about a car accident, and in the dream, it's on this particular intersection that you drive down every day. Now, what's your response to this? Maybe you're like, I'm going to take a different route to work. Okay. Now, you may or may not find out there was an accident on that intersection, but at least you can say, I took my advice from spirit. I took the intuition and prevented myself from being a car accident today. Are those two things really related? I think a lot of times in these sort of spiritual and psychic communities, we take that as a given, right? This would be a premise that I think most people would operate under. Well, you got a warning, you took a different route, you prevented a car accident, we can all move on. That's relatively innocent. It's relatively like, nobody's harmed, everybody's okay and intact. That's not really a big deal. Where it becomes a big deal is if you dream about a car accident and then use it as a reason to call out of work. All right. And then you use it as a reason to stop going to activities, and you use it as a reason to stop seeing your friends. And you start to use it more as a way to reinforce your own fear of being in public spaces.
Like a crutch.
Like a crutch, right? So the real issue is that you're deeply insecure about being in public spaces, and these fear visions that come to you are really just that. They're fear visions to reinforce your own phobia and desire to stay home and stay safe. Okay.
Yeah. Now, are those fear visions, because we're kind of talking a little about a couple different things here, about whether or not it's like spirit or something kind of dragging you, of course, or is this something that you are creating yourself?
Right. And that is ultimately the question, that when you're working with your spiritual gifts and you're developing your psychic abilities, you have to constantly check. You have to constantly check in, because the moment that you start taking what you perceive as literal, as to be the correct and utter truth, is when you start to fall into some ego traps that can really leave you, making the wrong decision or facing humiliation, or in general falling on your face, So, but these are all things that still, it's sort of like, we can kind of see how these could be some traps that, aren't a totally big deal, but it's like where it starts to get really concerning for me, especially as someone who works with a lot of tarot card readers, is when I can tell that someone is mistaking their ego and their projections for intuition, and they give advice from that frame of mind, and people very often expect things to be a certain way. Like, I already think that so-and-so is jealous of me, and now I'm going to read these tarot cards, and these tarot cards have just reinforced this premise or this expectation that this is what's going on. And now I'm going to roll with that and create drama and conflict with this person. And it just spirals out of control from there, So it's very important to check in regularly. Like, when you see something, can you verify it? Is there any way to take a step back and be like, am I personally invested in the outcome or the story of this? Is this coming to me to warn me or to get me to act in some way? Or is this something I can simply let, go? Because especially when you're early on in your journey, you can mistake intuition for your monkey mind chatter. And your brain tells you stories all day long, and you think that this is intuition, and you don't have to believe everything your brain tells you. And in fact, I don't recommend it, right? Right?
Do you remember Nye's Polonaise room?
Yes.
Many years ago, probably nearly 20 years ago, a little less than that. A friend of mine and I, we were going to go to a funeral of a coworker or someone in our field had died. And we're just going to go to the funeral. That's all we had planned. That night, I had a dream that I was gunned down in front of Nye's Polonaise room. And so I get to work the next day, and it really affected me. I get to work next day, and Kirsten says to me, I have a great idea. How about after the funeral, let's go to Nye's? Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. But
And that is kind of to your point. Like, where do you go from there? Do you go like, well, no, I had this dream where I was gunned down, or like, I just, come on, you got to live your life as well.
You got to live your life. Did you go? Did you go
yeah,
tonight?
we went. Absolutely.
Gunning?
I made it. Gunned down in front of knives.
Right. And this is where I'm like, I really want to caution people against taking everything that they get as literal. You know, like, oh, I had this vision or this dream of, being gunned down at knives, and now I'm going to literally believe that that's going to happen to me tonight. Now, I will be honest and say that if it had been me, where I had that vision of like being gunned down in front of knives, I probably would have been like, maybe tonight's not the night to go there. Maybe pick some different spot to go to. And because maybe, but that's the thing though, is that these things are interpretive, right? Like you could interpret it as it being a literal thing. And as you found out, it wasn't literal for that day. It might be literal on a different day, but not for that day. So then you have to come back and ask yourself, well, what was that dream about? Like what does that really mean to me?
And do you also have to kind of ask the question, like, how many times do I have dreams about being gunned down? It sounds silly to say that, but and so I mean, in a way, I've never had a dream about being gunned down before. So in a way, that almost makes it more of a reason not to go, because it's like, okay, that's weird. You might have dreams of like, running and not moving too fast. Someone's chasing you. Okay, that's kind of a normal like dream paralysis sort of thing. But yeah, that I think those are interesting, decisions that you kind of have to face in this situation.
They are, and you have to decide what's more important, to just go live your life and see what happens, or do you look at it and go, okay, how can I interpret this as, like, since this is a dream, what is it trying to tell me? Like, am I afraid of like, why is my brain telling me that I'm afraid of being gunned down today? Like, is it fear? Is it like, do you feel like something's coming for you, and why? Is there something imminent? Like, maybe there was something that you're actually about to go perform the next day, and it's really an anxiety dream, and the message is about being prevented from fully showing up on stage. It could be, remember that these things, because they are metaphorical and meant to be interpreted, that there can be multiple interpretations, and to stay detached. Like, part of where psychosis starts to creep into the picture is when we get attached to a particular storyline, or attached to a particular way of being, or a particular meaning. It must mean this. And anybody that comes in to challenge that, you feel defensive, and it affects your worldview, where it's like, I can't hear anything that you're saying to me. And you think you're like, well, this is the logical, and I'm like, no, I can't hear all that. I can't hear all that, because I'm attached to this story, and I'm attached to believing that this is what it is. So when you're going through this stuff and you find yourself in a space where you're attached to a particular idea or a story, that is one of those points where you have to recognize you're on the edge of an ego trap, and you need to take a step back and really reevaluate and really get grounded. And I would recommend people learn how to ground and clear their energy before they even try to learn lucid dreaming or astral projection or tarot cards or, ghost boxing, like whatever, like, learn how to ground and clear your energy first, because your body often perceives these things before you do. So you might get your nervous system gets activated, your fight or flight response gets activated, and then it becomes a cascading effect, where are you prone to fighting or fleeing? And whatever you're prone to can play into the story that creeps up from your subconscious and to try to make meaning of it. And you can completely misinterpret the stimuli in this fashion.
Absolutely. All I know is that I outlasted knives.
Right.
I know they say it's still there, but it's not. That's not knives.
No, right. It's not the same anymore.
Why don't we do this? Let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. We have a couple questions in the comments I want to get to, We're having a very interesting conversation with Reverend Briana Lee, grounding intuition and reality. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
We know you value buying local, especially when it comes to your magical supplies. So if you're looking for grimoires, decks, jewelry, candles, or herbs that are locally sourced, then come on down to Magus Books and Herbs. Curated for your ritual, ceremonial, spiritual, and spellwork needs, we've got all the tools to make your working extra. So make that prosperity ritual one that keeps on giving by visiting us at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis, or visit us online at magusbooks.com.
Gritty Gear Company is a great place to go for clothing that is fun and expressive. But did you know we also do custom orders on demand? We've worked with all types of companies and organizations, from first responders to even a certain radio station. Our team is here to help you look amazing. Our clothing is of the highest quality, and you will love your logo on the finished product. We are a locally owned small business who simply wants you to look great. Find out more at grittygearcompany.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
And tomorrow is the day. Come on out to Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka on at 6:30 p.m. It's Ghost Stories and Beyond, the June edition, and we're going to be doing what we call open mic night. That means if anybody wants to come out there, share some of your stories, your experiences, you are more than welcome to do so. We're going to be sharing some of the stuff that we've been doing over the past couple months. Boy, it's hard to believe it's already the June Ghost Stories and Beyond. I mean, it just seemed like a week ago it was May, and they just seem to be going so fast, but they are so much fun. And for those who are interested in such things, burgers are half price at Billy's Bar and Grill, which makes it kind of fun too. And welcome back to GhostBox Radio. You can, if you're watching on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on Facebook, you can watch Reverend Briana Lee and myself slowly melt in our house as the temperatures rise, and it's like watching the House of Wax. And have you ever seen a candle burn before? Well, this is kind of what's happening here. Have you? Now, I forgive me for such a personal question. You eat meat. You eat meat, right?
Somewhat. I'm not too much into pork anymore. I'm actually slowly moving into a more vegetarian and vegan diet. So like the first time I was on and you're like, yeah, let's go get ribs. And I'm like, I mean, I can eat a salad and watch you eat ribs. I won't be eating ribs.
I'm not 100% sure. I really want to have people watch me eat. You know, I mean, it's just, unless we're selling tickets or something, I don't know. But yeah, no, it's you know, and you know, we can still be friends. That's fine.
Okay, good.
I'm
sorry if I disappointed you.
No. I mean, I'm all about people who have that, or medium well steaks or garbage like that, but that's okay. So yeah, no, how did we get on this subject anyway? So come out to Ghost Stories. Are you going out to Ghost Stories tomorrow?
I will 100% be there tomorrow for sure. Yes.
I heard it's air conditioned in the.
Oh, thank goodness. So we won't all be like sweaty and melty in that little room.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope, and maybe I'm just saying that to get people out there. We'll see how it goes.
It'll probably be air conditioned, pretty sure.
It should be cooler outside too. So we've been talking, and it's very interesting talking about grounding, intuition, and reality. You know, once again, Reverend Briana is available to to talk and stuff through, or if you need help, you can reach out to her and find out what that takes for that to happen. A couple questions. Yes. David asked the question, do you both think that when people start using their abilities that they open themselves up too much and get overwhelmed?
I think that's definitely possible. And that's part of the reason I wanted to talk about this stuff, is to just be like, we get excited. It's new. It's a fun new toy. Let's go see what we can do with it. And then stuff starts happening that affects your worldview, that affects your thought processes, that affects the way that you experience things. And suddenly you're like, what's up, what's down? And you can go too far too fast. That's definitely possible. So I recommend that if you're actively doing some kind of activity to develop your intuition, to take your time with it. Like, try to like look at like what's the baby steps, and then what can you work up to. You know, like you don't need to rush into all of this stuff, and you want to make sure that you have a solid foundation and understanding in what it is before you go into some, big event like I mean, it could be any number of things.
Could be anything, right?
Could be anything. So for example, there's all kinds of clairs, like all the different clairs are like all the different ways we perceive things, and being able to discern when a vision is a projection versus a real intuition, like that can be a lifelong journey. Like, don't expect to master that overnight. What you can do though is expect to start verifying. So if you're somebody that starts to receive information about things, you should be able to verify it fairly quickly and easily, so that you can tell it's real versus a projection or wishful thinking or jumping to conclusions.
Right. I think a great example of that too is the infamous Masonic Lodge event that we held, and
World Jasper Lodge.
Very few made it out. We light a candle every once in a while for them, but I think, in all honesty, I think in some ways, I think respect has something to do with it, like not respecting the energy, not realizing how much you need to respect the energy.
Yes.
And there's a couple people that were at the event who really got the shock of their lives when they couldn't handle what was happening to them, because they opened themselves up thinking that they could take on anything. And the fact is that they completely were bowled over by it. And to be honest too, I mean, it happens to those who, to us, let's be honest, to us that have been doing this for a great deal of time. It's incredible.
It's incredible. And there's still room for error. Like, again, you have to like check your preconceived notions. Cause like, for me, I got kind of sick. But also part of the reason, like with talking about whether or not we're going to go eat ribs, is because I now know that I can't do the level of spirit work that I do and be a meat eater. Like, it just, it just doesn't work energetically, physically for me. So I probably ate too heavy of food that day before I came on site. That was thing number one. But I was like, it'll be fine. Enough time has passed, it was whatever. But then when it's like these negative vibes started coming through, at that period of time, I had been doing a lot of research around demons and demonic activity. So like almost immediately, I'm like, do I need to perform an exorcism tonight? And I was like, why didn't I think of doing a healing? Why didn't I think of doing like a prayer session to appease the spirits? Why was that my audit? And that's part of the reason that I left, is because I was like, I'm clearly not, like, for whatever reason, this isn't working for me tonight and I gotta go.
It muddles everything, right?
Yeah. And so and this is another thing where it's like, when we're doing this stuff and engaging in it, if we come in with, like, maybe we had a bad day, and so there's something in the back of our minds that we're still angry or frustrated, the likelihood of bringing that energy into your interaction with somebody or with the spirits as you're trying to talk to them is very high. So you have to make sure that you put yourself and your preconceived notions and your expectations to the side and be willing to have an open mind. It's when you come in already decided what's going on that you get problems. So you gotta be able to step back and question not only what you're perceiving, but your response to it, as well as whether or not that's appropriate for what's happening.
What also helped was those bells in such a small compartment. Like I can still hear them. I can still hear them. They're. Can
I just tell you, when my mom listened to that interview, she thought that part of the show was so hilarious. She's like, Greg talking about the boing.
Oh,
but that's why you have them. That's why you have them, is because, so when whatever we're perceiving, it's like it's a frequency. You can perceive it to be like a radio station wave, right? A radio wave. We pick it up in through our subconscious. It comes into our imagination. It drops into our ego, right? So these are frequencies that our brain is interpreting, relating to other experiences we've had, creating imagery, creating a story, and that's when it pops into our consciousness. The bells disrupt those frequencies. They sure
did. They've disrupted a lot of frequencies. Here, folks, while Brian is still laughing, this is how it was. Because it was raining, so I had an umbrella, walked her back to her car because she's leaving the event. She's going to then drive me the block back to the place. But, I mean, it was pouring, absolutely pouring down with rain. So it was very appreciative. We get in and she's like, I need to do something with bells, or I don't remember what she said. And here I'm thinking like, ding, 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 ding. And no, instead it's like Davy Jones of the tambourine and from the Monkees, and it's like just this and it's like we're inside a car, and you needed to do what you needed to do. And
right. I'm sorry I didn't warn you first. I know they're sharp and loud, and
sharp. That's a great term for it.
Yeah.
What's interesting about all that, and not to take us too far off, where it all started to go poor at that event was when we brought through George Washington, because we did up in the chambers. We brought him through. I have him on Spirit Box. We had some equipment. I'm actually getting chills now talking about it. I think he's off limits, quite frankly. We had those tripwires all around, like a photo that we had spirits say, okay, we can use, like, not a photo, a painting, because Masonic lodges have nothing but paintings of George Washington. And they really do. I mean, they really do. And we said, President Washington, are you here? We get something to Spirit Box, and all the tripwires go off, and it literally felt like the room just went dark. And then people started, that's when the line of destruction began. And I always imagine there's an episode of The Simpsons when they're all using the trampoline that Homer's making, like everyone in the neighborhood charging them like $2, but each one breaks something when they like hit the ground because they don't know how to use it. They have this like panic shot of all these children just laying on the ground like a battlefield. I kind of felt like that was kind of what that event became a little bit, where it's just like
it was like dominoes. We're just all
people are just laying there, and then some were not affected at all. And not to put you on the spot, why do you think that is?
So everybody is sensitive in different ways, and I think also too, sometimes people don't realize they're getting the stimuli that they're getting. And so they might have been dismissing things that they'd been picking up on. But also too, your lifestyle really does play a role in how sensitive you are. So, and as well as your preconceived notions about what you can or cannot perceive, so it could be that they didn't perceive anything because there's something about, like, maybe they had a steak dinner and that just makes them too heavy to pick up on the lighter energies.
Sure.
Or it could be something where that's not how their abilities work. And so they're not going to experience anything in that way because that's not how that information comes to them. And it could also be that, like, maybe something about their energy, the spirits were like, nah, bro, I don't know.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? My gosh. I mean, it's, and the only thing is, I'd much rather have people say, yeah, I didn't feel anything, instead of some of them, oh, I didn't feel anything, knock it off.
Right.
There's nothing going on here because I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it's because you're soulless, pal. You have no soul. No, it's well, I'm not completely lying there, but why don't we do this? Let's get to our next break here. When we come back, we're going to see where Briana wants to pick up, because we have gone off topic a little bit here. And any questions that you all have, this has been an interesting conversation, so we have more to come. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Recently, I had a large order of custom designed t-shirts that needed to be turned around in a hurry. I knew exactly who to call. Grady Gear Company. Grady Gear Company is a local company that handles large and small custom clothing and apparel orders. I had a lot of questions from color, shirt quality, and what sizes we needed. Grady Gear Company was great to work with. They got us what we needed on time, and now everybody's looking great around the station in their new gear. Start your order at GradyGearCo.com.
Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to have on psychic medium, Refined Divine. She's with us every other week, and we're actually going to focus. We're doing one-question readings, but tomorrow we're going to also focus on pets. So if there is something that you want to ask about a pet that has passed, or your current pet, or she'll read your pet that's still living. Why did they try to trip you going down the stairs? And that's based on a true story. And anything else, I think it'll be really a lot of fun tomorrow. So make sure that you get there. And as we always say, calling in gets you to the front of the line. So definitely do that tomorrow. We are talking with Reverend Briana Lee. We're talking about grounding intuition in reality, and it's been I've been really enjoying this conversation. And Dawn put in a comment that I find kind of interesting. My mom told me you'll see things, or maybe see things I was too young to comprehend. I'm not quite sure. She said in an earlier thing, she said that she doesn't have scary dreams, and I think that. I'm wondering if that's kind of a comment on opening up her abilities more or something. I'm not quite sure.
So yeah. So, I mean, for a lot of people, their psychic abilities will often start to manifest in childhood. And very often, because of the way that we're raised and the context or way in which we're raised, those things can get suppressed. You know, and oftentimes, especially as we get into our teen years where we're trying to express ourselves and our will as adults, our focus shifts more to immediate things we have control over, as opposed to some of these psychic abilities. And so for a lot of people, they might either forget about phenomenon that they had as a child, and then have it resurface sometime later on in their mid to late 40s. In fact, it's actually very common to have a spiritual awakening, so to speak, in your mid to late 40s, because according to chakra theory, your crown chakra doesn't fully develop until you're in your 40s. So that's when you're fully open and online. And so, and for a lot of people too, they've been married, they had their kids are probably almost out of the house, if not out of the house at that point. So they're able to come back and focus back on themselves. And so if you're wondering if you are psychic and if you experienced stuff when you were a kid, do some journaling, take some notes, be like, I experienced, what did you consider to be phenomenon? For me, I remember seeing white lights around people, and I understood that to be auras. I saw disembodied people, and I took that to be ghosts and spirits. We did a lot of stuff as a family together, so I was able to preserve a lot of that through into my adulthood. But a lot of people don't have that luxury. And especially when they get to me where they're like, is this real or am I crazy? And it's a lot of the reasons why people automatically assume they're going crazy is because that's the context under which psychic ability was described. Yeah. And we have a lot of media around people getting sent to an insane asylum for being different or weird or having visions or magical thinking. And and this is one of the reasons why I was really into Susan B. Martinez's book, The Field Guide to the Spirit World, is because in the book, she looks at this confluence of psychic ability, trauma, dissociative identity, psychic ability, and crime, and so there's all these things that can kind of contribute to whether or not your psychic gifts manifest early in life or later on in life. And for the most part, just take an inventory and just be like, yep, that was weird, that was weird, that was weird. I might be starting a hashtag the surreal life, because these are all the things, but don't be afraid to look at that stuff and just go, yeah, that happened. Because sometimes just acknowledging them and validating that that was a thing that maybe you or your family didn't understand or weren't allowed to engage in starts to open that window to be like, okay, what is possible for me if developing my psychic gifts is something.
Right. Now, here's an interesting, Kira has a question. Do you believe people lose their abilities?
I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. And it can happen for any number of reasons. It can happen because of trauma, because something came in and disrupted everything that was going on with you. And so you had to refocus and get through some kind of crisis. Mm-hmm. And it can take you time to psychically heal as well as physically heal. So like, for example, we are in a kind of a hustle culture where it's work, 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 work. We all got to get somewhere, and you end up with adrenal burnout. Okay. Adrenal burnout means that you can't function. You have no creativity. You have no energy. You have no drive. Where's the energy for psychic powers in that? Your body isn't going to be online to receive those frequencies if you're in a depleted state.
Right. Do you think that they're lost, or do you think they get buried?
I think that I would say people can lose their abilities temporarily, like they get buried or suppressed, or you're depleted to the point that there's not that flow to bring that forward anymore. But it is possible to get them back. At least that's what I believe.
Because I've always thought of it like, a muscle, right? You could, if you're not exercising, it's going to go away. But if it does go away, that you could build it up. There's no guarantee it might be at the same level.
Right?
Yeah,
right. Because that's exactly how I see it. It is like a muscle. So if you kind of lose an ability because you're not able to engage in it or focus on it, or you've been depleted or traumatized in some fashion, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to bring that back into my life. Then you're kind of starting back at the beginning. You're doing 1-2 reps as opposed to 15 reps. You're engaging in that activity maybe for 5 minutes as opposed to an hour, and you have to work back up to it. And I also think that your abilities can change over time. Like what you might have been really great at one point in your life shifts and becomes something else. And rather than looking at it like, oh, I can't do this thing anymore, be like, well, maybe this is a natural progression, and what can I do and what is possible, and not get caught up on like holding on to these things.
Yeah.
Because the second that it informs your identity, the second that you hang your identity on your psychic gifts is when the ego traps begin, So
we're not in control of our evolution sometimes, right? I mean,
right.
It goes however that is already planned. I mean, maybe it isn't already planned for us, but there is a kind of a roadmap, I feel like, with some of this.
Right. As far as like, where do you start and how do you develop your gifts?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Sure. And there's a lot of books out there that talk about developing your psychic abilities and your intuition. And it kind of depends on like, there's stuff that you're going to be natural at. Those are going to be the things that are going to be the easiest for you to develop. You might not know what they are at first, but if you take an inventory of the phenomena in your life, you can probably figure it out. You realize that you always get this phantom smell, and that's how you have like clairsalience, right?
Yep.
And so that particular skill then is going to be the easiest for you to develop. And much in the same way where it's like art, anybody can do art, but not everyone's going to be great at it. Anybody can learn the skills and techniques and get to a certain place, but not everyone is going to have the same level of organic gifts and abilities as other people. And that's okay.
It's a really interesting point. And, the idea too of like, I can understand why, like we get really attached to our gifts because it served us so well, or that we've been able to help people, and it does become a bit of an identity for us, doesn't it? In a certain way.
It does. And the ego trap of spirituality can get really ugly, where it's like, and I've seen this quite a bit in the circles that I run in, where it's like, I am Grand Poobah so-and-so, and I've run this thing for all these years, and I'm so important. And every interaction they have with you is them being the guru and you being the recipient of the download of their knowledge. And you just want to slap them and be like, could you be human? I don't care about your persona. I want to know you.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I see that a lot. And that is a danger and a trap when you get into this place of like, I'm promoting myself and my persona, and my marketing says I am this person and that's who I must be at all times.
It's amazing. It's amazing how much ego actually plays in a metaphysical realm of certain practitioners and certain.
Well, I think it has to, because the stuff that we're talking about is invisible. It's feelings, it's perceptions. It's not concrete like my phone. So if I don't have the ego to come on here and say, this is how I'm going to stand in my correctness and self-righteousness, my business isn't going to get very far.
No.
But then there's that trap of being like too much and too focused on that, where then it's like people are like, well, how can we take you seriously? Because you're clearly clout seeking and not you don't genuinely care about X, Y, or Z.
And it's to me, it feels like there's that, for some, there's a level of almost like belittle.
Yes.
It's not a partnership. It's not on the same level. It's more of like how you just described it a couple minutes ago, of just like, I'm omnipotent, quite frankly, and just everything I say is like and I've been
omniscient. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like almost like a gangster ring in a sense, it's like, you got the, your head people in this a little bit who are like, we're untouchable. This is how we do things. And it's just, it just, you want to just find someone who can help you at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, you want someone who's going to help you, who legitimately cares. And if they can't help you, they're going to be honest with you and not take your money anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's something that I worry about, when people come to me and they're very attached to the idea that they're under psychic attack. They're very attached to the idea that they're being hexed. They're very attached to these things. And I'm like, well, actually, these symptoms line up with this, and maybe you should go to a doctor instead of a practitioner of witchcraft. Like, be real, and they don't want to hear that. And they're like, no, but I'm so like, it has to be this. It has to be a voodoo doll. And I'm like, no, it could be parasites. Go to the doctor.
It could be an ulcer.
It's like, but people, and that's where that psychosis comes in, where it's like you get attached to that story, and people trying to give you alternate points of view threaten your worldview, and you get defensive and create conflict because you don't like that people are pointing out your fallacies.
Absolutely. It kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it?
Right.
So once again, how can folks get a hold of you and talk with you and see services that you offer, how you can help them, how all that works?
Awesome. So I have my own website, and that is animapraxis.com. And you can see all of my services on that website. You can even book time with me through there, as well as send inquiries. I also work at Magus Books in Minneapolis. I'm usually in the shop Wednesday through Saturday. So if you wanted to drop in, have a conversation, do a consultation, or get a Reiki session, you can get that from me there as well.
Yes. And I highly recommend people doing that, because I mean, this is just 1 hour of a lot of very, very helpful information.
Always. I'm like, I wrote you a manuscript, Greg, and you're like, we'll get to the first paragraph.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I honestly only promised the first sentence, quite frankly.
Right.
So we got to the second sentence this time.
Right.
I don't think we did too bad, right?
You did pretty good.
Brianna, thank you as always so much for joining us. This is great information.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, always. And we'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good.
Then tomorrow, join us for Psychic Medium, Refined Divine. Everyone, have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.